Grow your practice, grow your wealth, grow your impact. Find out how to spend less time in the dental chair and more time on the things you love.
Welcome back to the Dental Wealth Podcast. For our active listeners, and there's so many of you out there, I have a very, 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 very special guest in the studio today, Katina Satterfield. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Katina runs our operations team at Tower Leadership. So I thought it'd be a great thing to just have her on the podcast to talk about kind of challenges office face, things you see, right? The dirty, dirty truth, right? The things that you see when you go to practice and what that looks like, and maybe some thoughts for people. For those of you watching on YouTube, I have my headset on, but Katina doesn't, because Katina is looking super cool. And so you have to go on YouTube and watch it. So she's looking super cool. And so I'll let my headphones mess up my hair, but anyhow, just kidding. Hey, no, seriously, glad to have you here in the studio today.
Thank you.
Really, really excited. So let's just jump right in. And this is a easy format, so we can just throw anything out we want here, all right?
Okay.
So one of the things that Katina does is when, your team goes into a practice, and we go in for a lot of different reasons. And this isn't a pitch on anybody on what Tower Leadership does. It's really just the idea of operations and what you should be looking for. So all of a sudden we do an analysis of a practice, and you're working with a practice, and what might you work on? So what kind of an operational thing might a practice, because we have practices, through the gamut. It could be as little as, $600,000, it could be as big as 20 million or 30 million. So when you come into a practice, like what would you see, or what maybe do you see, or you could throw anything out there that you want. That's the good thing about a podcast. So what kind of things do you see? What kind of things would you like to see? What kind of things do you not want to see? What are the challenges that doctors face?
Well, the majority of the times it's really the fundamental. Back to the fundamentals. I know that sounds very basic, but it's very true. You just get so busy in your every day in, day out trying to survive through the day that a lot of times you forget your processes and systems. Processes and systems is really what keeps you grounded and have more organized chaos, because dental practices definitely can be chaotic.
And business can be chaotic, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So we want to learn how to control that. And I tease and say organized chaos, because, you get a lot thrown at you. You're almost a juggler, especially if you're in the front. That's where you have a lot of systems and processes.
But Katina, I have an office manager.
Yes.
And so all of that's good because I have an office manager. So what's the point? I already have an office manager. Why would I need any help? She's been here for 32 years and I'm still in business. So why would I need any help?
Well, because we always need to grow and learn. And I've been doing this for 26 years and I'm always growing and learning myself. And I think sometimes when we do find someone that's been in the practice for 30 years, sometimes, not always, but sometimes they're still doing things like they did 30 years ago. So we really have to go in and help, that sigmoid curve. We have to help them dominate their marketplace.
Dominate the marketplace. I love that. Well, I think that, and you've worked with even, one of the things we've even assisted practices was getting, we assisted some practices getting operational, like almost officers, almost like COOs, like a whole different level, right? Because there's an organizational ceiling, and I've talked about this podcast, where people hit organizational ceilings, and it happens with most organizations. There's something in business most people need to be aware of, and it's called the black hole of business, and it happens between 3 to 5 million. So there's a lot of you listening that are in that zone. So between 3 to 5 million, you find yourself, and sometimes it can be around 2 to 5 million. But you're at this place where you don't want to you don't want to invest in management because you're like, look, I don't want to spend $120,000 on somebody. But yet you can't grow if you don't invest in the right team. So either what ends up happening is you either grow, invest in those people, and then you grow, or you have to pull back because you can't handle the growth and the team starts to show its weaknesses. Would you agree with that?
I would agree 100%. I actually just did an operations analysis with a team of 3 locations. And the doctor, after I went over everything that I found, the doctor literally said, his mind was blown, and he was like, oh my goodness, I need a COO to do all of these things. He said, this is amazing, I'm so excited, but the team that I have right now Well, it was very apparent that the team that he had right now didn't have the capacity or the knowledge to move forward and make those things happen. So we have talked to him about having a COO or director of operations before, but not until that analysis and kind of everything being uncovered when he realized, oh goodness, to make this happen. Yeah. And because usually they say, oh, I can't afford to get a COO. His response was, I can't afford not to get a COO, when he saw all the opportunity that was being missed just on day-to-day information. Within like the first hour of being there, so many things was uncovered, the opportunities that they were missing to really have a lot more cash flow, to be more productive, bring in a lot more revenue, take better care of their team, get what they want out of life.
You know, this podcast was built and designed around the independent dentist, and we see the DSO market evolving, and we're attracting DSOs at Tower Leadership, which is interesting. And you know, I welcome anyone who wants to grow a business and impact people. And so we're having a lot of DSOs come to Tower Leadership for guidance. And so when we start to look at that and see what's happening in the marketplace, but still independent dentists, we're helping you thrive and get there. If you look at DSOs, one of the things you'll find is, like, I just saw a DSO who they just hired as their director of operations. And I think I talked about this last podcast. The guy's like he's a JD and MBA Ivy League. And that's the guy who's across the street from you. Mm-hmm. And you're trying to compete with an office manager with a high school diploma who has no business acumen. And that's not to beat anybody up, by the way. This is not a disrespect to someone who's been in your practice, who's been working hard. It doesn't take away their efforts or any of those things. Look, I mean, you became a dentist for a reason, right? You went and got educated for a reason. You weren't better then or now. It's just that you're more educated. You have more acumen. You have more skill sets. So what ends up happening is, as the market changes, we have to increase our operational prowess, right? We've got to be able to compete. So what are some of the ways, Katina, because I talk a lot on this podcast, I'll try to shut up some, but what are some of the ways that a practice, let's just say that I own a dental practice. We'll kind of go to the average independent practice. I'm doing $1.6 million. I got an associate 1 or 2 days a week. I'm stressed out. I have an office manager. No leadership team, no meetings, no KPIs. You know, maybe I went to some seminar who told me to measure some KPIs. None of that's getting put in place because it all counts on me. What are some things I can do because I'm stuck, right? So how do I get to that next level? What are some of the operations things at that stage I might be looking to do that would change my practice life, maybe my stress level, and maybe my finances? Typically
what I do is help the doctor set up a leadership team. So in the leadership team, you want to find some of your key performers that can help you measure the certain metrics. And there's some basic metrics that you want to measure in every practice, but depending on your specialty and your niche and things that you do the best, there are some specific metrics that you want to measure as well. So you want to keep a pulse on the practice and make sure. I think what I'm really good at is when I'm working with teams is explaining why we measure those metrics. It's easy to just say, measure this, and the team's like, but why?
That never happens, by the way, ever.
Yeah, exactly. Right. But I think digging in a little bit deeper and explaining why we measure them and the impact that it has on the practice and the team is huge, and really getting the team to buy in and they're not just measuring to measure. Your main saying is you get what you measure. We want to make sure that we understand what we're measuring. So during the operations, I look at a lot of different reports. I don't even have to really go into their office. I can just get these reports and know what's happening in the practice, whether their collections is good, their new patient numbers, Actually, without even calling their office, I can usually tell how their phone experience is, their patient experience, just because I have the knowledge of what to look at report-wise. And then I use that information to help build the team up and show them how to become better. You know, whether it is through some one-on-one training or utilizing our Tower University and giving them a whole day training, really just helping the practice understand what they need to measure and why. I think it's really important.
Why is such a key thing. My son said to me recently, he said, Dad, one of the things you've never done to me is when I've asked why, you explain to me. And, you don't do what a lot of my friends' parents do, is just say, 'cause I told you so. Now, to give all parents credit, there's sometimes where you need to look at your kids and say, I told you so, right? Because I said so, right?
Exactly.
But I mean, look, I mean, you know, one of the things I've always done that is because I'm like, look, I think that one of the, and by the way, I'm not calling your team members children, but there is still this almost parental relationship there. And so that is analogous in some ways because you're still stewarding that person from a leadership standpoint. And what ends up happening, and I would call it lack of leadership, is when we don't establish a vision, we don't establish where we're going. Like, if my son says, Dad, why do you want me to do that? I would say, well, let's talk about why. I always thought that was
Not
important.
because I said so?
Not because I said so, right? I mean, I remember being off the coast of Iraq. People always have this idea of, like, the military, you just like, go here, do this. Like, that's just movie stuff, right? That's not true. Some people can be motivated by yelling at them. Some people can be motivated by being compassionate. Some people can be incentivized into to doing. There's a lot of people are motivated by different things in their childhood, and we're not. This isn't the psychology podcast, but we could get into that. But so I do think that as a business owner, when you don't establish a vision, a direction, where we're going, why we're doing it, and then you tell people because I said so, well, then it's like
it's not very motivating,
right? And if it's like you haven't explained, it's one of those things that I'm the boss, and then you go back to, by the way, then we go get consensus from people around us. We go, don't you think this employee was ridiculous? Well, sometimes in operations, you know, what we need to do is give our leadership.
Leadership's huge, and in developing that team, a lot gets taken off of the doctor's plate as well. And delegate. We have to delegate to our leadership team and not be afraid to do that. One kind of rule is if they can do it at least 80% as good as I can, let them do it. Give them the opportunity, you know, and I'm sure they will surprise you.
I have to tell you one thing. Sorry to cut you off.
It's okay.
I heard a cool story the other day. So I was sitting down with the CEO, and he said, I sat down with my management team on September 1st, and I told them, you have 12 months to prepare. It's really 10 months if you actually look at what we said. But he said, told the management team, he said, in 10 months, I'm working remotely next summer. The entire summer. Now I'm working, but I'm going to work remotely. That's why I started a business. I want to work remotely. So you, as a management team, are going to own this business next summer. So don't expect me to be here every day. Like we have a 10-month goal. And by the way, that was a goal.
Sure.
We have a 10-month goal to be able to run this business without me showing up. I thought, like, how cool is that? Like, that was really, and it challenged everyone on the team. Now they know why, and they know what's in it for them, and they know the future, and they go, we'll do that. And so they're excited about the challenge. And so, but you can't do that without great operations, can you?
You cannot. Well, and to just going back to like the metrics, you know, one thing that I think most dental practice measure is this referral sources. Where are our referrals coming from? But to a team member, well, why do we want to measure that? They don't understand that we're looking at our patient experience. Are we asking for referrals and reviews? Are we utilizing our external marketing? So our new patients, 65% of those should be coming from our existing patients. If it's not, we can look at it and kind of, I guess, monitor. You want to monitor it, but if it falls below 65%, that's telling me something's happening with our experience. What's happening with our experience? Or our team's not asking for referrals and reviews. Sometimes they just simply need to be educated on how important it is to ask for those things. If it's over 65%, we're missing out on some external marketing opportunities. So it lets you kind of keep a pulse on the practice just by measuring that one thing. And when you explain that to the team, it becomes a better understanding, and then they know the why behind tracking that number, and it's not just because I want to know where the patients are coming from.
You know, I was thinking about the experience the other day, and it's funny you say that because, all right, we're talking about management, leadership, right? Having the right leadership in your practice, which is explain the why we're doing this, what's the impact, what can we do? Management, which is the management of processes and systems. One of the things I tell people is, look, and I'm very strong on this. This whole LinkedIn, I say LinkedIn because this is where I see this the most. This whole stupid link thing of like, leadership is good, management is bad. Leadership you care, management you don't. It's so stupid. Like that is just, whoever wrote that, is just sounded good in a post and someone was foolish enough to take it and run with it.
Yes.
And it made them sound like it's not true. You have to have great leadership and great management. Like you
do.
can't run a business without management. And you say, well, we run a business with leadership. No, leadership is it inspires people. Leadership is what makes you want to be followed. Leadership is the direction of this business and where we're trying. Management is all the things that go behind the scenes to make all that happen. I know you've walked into practice with $300,000 to $400,000 of accounts receivable that no one managed. Yeah, that's not leadership. That's management.
It's been up to $500,000 in AR, over 90-day AR.
Over 90 days. So you're talking about, look, that's management, right? That's not leadership. Now we could find leadership flaws in obviously that business, or those businesses, but a lot of it's management, right? And there's some drop in management, right?
Yeah. Well, a lot of times, if you don't have that right individual kind of as your right hand, the doctor didn't go to business school, most of them. They went to dental school, so they don't understand what they need to be looking at. The practice that I went in and found $500,000, the dentist didn't even know what reports to be looking at. He was flabbergasted by how much AR was out there. Actually, he was not flabbergasted. He was very upset and at himself because he didn't know what to look at. So we just kind of went through and then, of course, set up a process. And the reason that happened is there was no process or system that was being followed and no one doing checks and balances. You always need someone to follow up. You want to trust, but you want to verify, right?
Trust and verify. You should write that down.
Trust
and verify. Right. Well, I was thinking about it. I was kind of twisting my glasses around here, and I was thinking about a conversation we had before. And we talk about, experience sounds so simple, right? Because people think that if you're kind, you have great experience. Okay, that is not true. Because, and I'll go back to this example that we talked about before this. Remember that? So I had asked for some help finding a really boutique place that has cool glass. All right, I'll embarrass myself a little bit. So I was like, I want to find a really place that has some boutique, like super cool. I don't care if they're a little pricey because I'll pay the difference because I don't want frames like everybody else and I'm willing to pay for it. And I don't want to walk in and be like, pull a number and I'll be like, you're 148 in line to get your 28 pairs of glasses for $1 or whatever, right? And so I don't want that. I wanted to find a place that experience when I walk in, I set an appointment with a concierge or whatever. And then, they're spending time, with my overpriced frames
catering
or whatever,
to you.
Right? Yeah, they're catering. And then I feel like, ooh, would I drive, right? I don't think we have one of those places. I got to drive probably 30 minutes to maybe one of these places. Am I willing to do that even on a weekend? Yes, because I would come in on a weekend to one of these places to have someone cater to me. I still am blown away. You know what, Katina? Like, if I started a dental practice tomorrow, when you walked in my door, I would blow people away.
Yes.
And here's where we go back to organizational ceiling. This is where we go into investment. How do you go from 3 to 5 million? Invest in your damn team. Like, bring in operations people, bring in sales and marketing, bring in CFO services. Make sure you're investing in your experience. How do you get there? Because what ends up happening is if you have 2 locations, 3 locations, 4 locations, 5 locations, what people don't understand is, people ask about common branding. Look, it's got to be the same experience if I go to Atlanta or if I go to Alpharetta or if I go to South Carolina. It doesn't matter where I go. I should be expecting an experience that is very similar. And by the way, am I going to pay more for these frames when I go to this boutique place? Of course I am, right? They're probably going to charge me 5 times as much. Why? Because I'm not the same clientele as the person who's trying to find 42 frames for $1. And so, and I'm not beating up on anyone.
It's 2 for $99.
I just hear the 2 for $99. And by the way, for kids, you should get 2 for $99.
Yes.
I mean, if anything, you might want to find 5 for $99 because they're not going to last anyhow. But in all seriousness, I think that I use that example to say, like, I use that example so people can hear what I'm trying to say, which is when you create a one-of-a-kind experience, people will drive to you. They will go to you. You can't do it by yourself. If you're a doctor and you're thinking, well, I got to create a one-of-a-kind experience, it's not your office manager. They've probably been doing the same thing for 32 years the same way. It's not just from one team training, because you can have a team training, but if there's no management to make sure it stays in place, to monitor it, to make sure it happens, then it won't stay in place anyhow. Some of you say, well, I've had a training and it didn't stick. It's because you didn't have the right management. That's a good key that you're managing.
To implement it. You can have the training all day long.
That's right.
But you have to implement it. That's key.
And make sure it's managed, right? To stay in place.
Absolutely.
And then having a leadership team looking at problems as they occur. Where did we fall short? Where can we get better? Managing KPIs, measuring accounts receivable, managing sales and marketing and numbers.
Goes back to trust but verify.
That's the message of this podcast. Trust,
I believe so.
And
Trust but verify. You always want to have, reports and things that you're checking on a daily, weekly, monthly basis to make sure that you know what the health of your practice is. You may not be the one particularly looking and going through all the AR, but you need to know what it is, and you need to know if it's at a healthy level or not. Going back to experience, I think the moral of your story is people will drive further and pay more for a better experience.
Yeah, right.
And the truth be told, it's about 80% of people will drive further and pay more for a better experience. And it doesn't start when they walk in the door. It starts when they call your office or call your practice. That's where you have to really wow them in the beginning.
So, by the way, those of you listening to this podcast, by the way, I know how many of you listen each week. It's a lot. I'm talking to you. That's right, because you're listening to this podcast right now. I'm guarantee you, yes, you. And you're saying, we have a great experience. Our hygienists are nice when they greet patients. And when we walk in the door and we hand them a clipboard, we're nice and everyone's nice, so we're good. No, you're a commodity. You're like every other dental practice out there. There's nothing unique about that experience. There's nothing that somebody would drive for. And no, not us, Eric. Yes, you.
Yes.
I'm talking to you. Listening to this podcast right now, I'm talking to you. And it's not just experience. By the way, we're just trying to say all of it. Operations encompasses leadership, management, hiring, finance, right? Experience, right? Phoning, everything that manage operations of a business is so complex. Now, Katina won't brag on herself, but let me tell you what, she is she's a powerhouse of information. You used to manage, be an area manager, of a large, dental chain, or chain might not be the right word, but dental.
It was one doctor that had several locations.
Yeah. And so the chain, the massive, right? So, but look, I think that our team here, the team that you have, is amazing. But I think no matter who you are listening to this, whether you're with Tower Leadership or someone else, it's some inferior company. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But no, if you've got a guide that's helping you, just understand, like, your operations has to be second to none. It has to be absolutely the best. And I do want you to pay attention to that black hole space, which is like, it is weird because if you're doing, let's say, $2.5 million, and I tell you to spend $120,000 on team member, you go, what? Right? Because the most you've ever spent is $50.
But then you go to $4 million.
That's right.
Overnight.
And then all of a sudden you don't have the right team, and you're freaking out because the AR is behind, because systems are falling apart, because when you bought that new office, no one's there to take care of things, and you start to go, oh my gosh, we don't have the right team. I'm like, I know, because you hit the black hole, which basically means like there is a gap where you have to invest in the team you can't afford temporarily. And by the way, there is return on investment. It's called return on invested capital. And by the way, there's a strong return on invested capital if you look at team. And matter of fact, this is a completely different conversation, but in your financials, you should isolate or be able to isolate from an analysis standpoint your management team and how much you're spending on your management team and the return on invested capital of your management team. That is for a different podcast. But by doing all this and investing in your operations, and then bring in people who are the experts, even operations that we've helped, really bring in people, we still go in and support the team.
Absolutely.
Help them look for things, right? Help them find things, build out custom plans. So it doesn't even matter if you have the team, you still need people looking at your team, right?
Absolutely. Well, and two, teams change. And you want to make sure that, the right people are in the right seats, because you can have talented people and they could be in the wrong seats. We've seen that, and we've helped, move teams around and recreate that organizational chart. And they have seen miraculous things happen, not adding people, just changing where they are. Things that they're really good at. You don't want someone being in a seat that they're miserable in, and it shows. I was listening to a podcast this morning, and it was talking about creating morale in a practice, and the number one key ingredients was choose your attitude. You bring what attitude you're going to have that day. You're either going to have a great day or a bad day. The book is talking about, her department was called the energy dump.
Tell me more about that.
So
I'm looking up something. Keep going. I'm paying attention.
The book's called Fish, and it was a lady who moved to Seattle, and her husband suddenly died with an aneurysm. She had 2 small children. She was in a position that she loved but was comfortable, and the Holy Terror was the third floor. It was that's what they called the energy dump. Or the pit. There were so many different names, and the whole company talked about the third floor, made fun of the third floor. They were butt of all the jokes, and because she was now a struggling single mother of two, she got the opportunity for this promotion, but she had to go manage the third floor. And she had heard all of the things that was being said about the third floor. And it was so bad that she literally would take her lunch and go out to the waterfront and take her lunch because the energy was so bad she didn't want to go spend the time with the team. Well, they called it staff, not team. So she accidentally stumbles up on the, what's the famous fish market there in Seattle? I'm drawing a blank. But there's like a fish market where they have so much fun and they're throwing the fish and all of these different things. And she's like just observing of the energy and how she wasn't in a place where she wanted to even smile, but because of the energy, she found herself even laughing. And she kind of developed a relationship with, I don't know if it's the owner or just someone that works there, but he's coaching her through kind of their philosophies and the ingredients of having a happy, healthy, high morale environment. And this can be anywhere you work. This is a fish market. And the first thing was bring the right attitude. You can choose what kind of attitude that you bring. And
you can hire for attitude as well, right? You can hire for attitude. I mean, I was listening to you as you were talking about that story, Katina, and I really enjoyed watching your excitement and your energy, right? It obviously is something that for you, that it shows like people love that. People love that high energy. I saw something on LinkedIn, I think it was from Indiana University, but I copied this, and I have no problem saying I copied it. We posted this in our office, and we posted it both upstairs and downstairs in our headquarters. And this is what it says. Please take responsibility for the energy you bring into the space. Now, this is for as soon as you walk in the door. This is one of the first things you see when you walk in the door. It's a reminder to everyone. Please take responsibility for your energy you bring into space, including me, all of us. And it says after that, your words matter, your behaviors matter, our clients and teams matter. Take a slow, deep breath. Make sure your energy is in check before entering. Thank you, Tower Leadership. So, the idea of that is to say, when you walk in, the first thing you do is say, hey, am I in the right headspace?
Yes.
Am I bringing the right energy? Am I excited?
Yes.
Am I what am I going to bring into this space? By the way, it's for you too, doctor. It's for everyone. Hey,
everyone.
Am I in the right place to be communicating with my team? Do I have the right headspace? Am I excited? Am I going to bring the right energy? Do I need to go out in the parking lot and run in circles and come back in? What's going to happen? Because just like that fish market story, there's a leadership example, right?
Yes.
The leadership's making that happen. And so if you're bringing that third floor energy, like we should use it now. We call it third floor energy.
Third floor energy.
The third floor energy. If we're bringing third floor energy into the workplace, into the dental office, patients feel it. This is what you guys understand too. Patients feel that awkward. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
So patients feel it. Team members feel it. Anyone ever been in, like, someone's really upset, whether there's been an argument or something happened, and you walk into a room and you're just like, you can just feel it.
Yes.
I was at a seminar last week, and so this lady was talking about the fact of, it was really cool. She was saying that the limbic system that can pick up your energy, that ultimately, it doesn't move to the neocortex, which is the thinking brain. But what ends up happening is very, very quickly, your body, with 1/300th of a second, knows how to assess danger. So the point is that your brain, because what happened was obviously if you're a caveman, right, or you have to assess very quickly,
for sure.
Is this a danger? Is this person, animal, whatever, a danger? And you have to assess it very quickly because you need to know if you should run or throw something very quickly. So our physiology is designed so that we're able to pick up on cues. And so most of this we don't really, and it's not in your thinking brain. In fact, one of the stories she shared is she said she coached FBI agents and she coached CIA and she had coached even poker players, and how did it tell if someone's lying. And she said that what ends up happening is when someone lies is their mannerisms are actually off from the statement. And the reason why is because you have to move into the neocortex, the thinking brain, to tell a lie. And so she's explaining this, and she was showing us all this like body movement. It's really cool. So now I'm an FBI analyst. No. So, but it goes back down to operations for a minute. Mm-hmm. So what happens is you think, for instance, you can fake it, right? So let's just say that you say, well, I'm going to fake my happy energy, or I'm going to fake. People can smell it, right? They can sense it. They know it. And so what happens is the patient knows. So when a patient sits in your chair, I want you to think about this. Within 1/300th of a second, they can tell if you're lying to them. They can tell if you're caring, whether you're charismatic. What ends up happening is people can assess when they walk into your office, the person who hands them the clipboard, do they really care? Mm-hmm. Do they really, I remember people say, how did I used to greet patients when, 20 years ago, whatever, when I was, helping build a dental office. I said, look, one of the reasons that happened was because I cared. I cared about people. And so they can tell if your team cares. They can tell if the hygienist cares. Your brain physiologically is designed within 1/300th of a second to assess. And there's so many clues that are picked up. Yeah. And so that's why when you come into an environment that's an amazing environment where there's great leadership and there's high fives and there's energy, patients feel it, that retention goes up, right? Right. Ultimately, case acceptance goes up. All the things that happen, it becomes the first floor, not the third floor environment.
Exactly.
So, there's a lot of things we're talking about. So we're in 30 minutes in this podcast. So I could go. You and I could talk for days, and you know that.
I think one of the important things, with all that being said, is the key word is choose. You choose your attitude that you come in with. And one thing that I do is I'm intentional about not letting my circumstances dictate my attitude or my mood. I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like I'm the same every day. I feel like I bring the same energy. I feel like I'm more of the calm energy. When I go into a practice or work with a team, one of the things, a lot of times you go in and the arms are crossed and they're looking at you and they're already in their mind have made up they're going to shut you down. And typically within the first 30 minutes, everybody's arms are uncrossed and they're relaxed and they're like, oh my goodness, when are you coming back? Because they know that I'm there to help them. I'm a resource. I'm not there to, my energy is, I'm going to help you. I'm going to help make your life better. So I think that energy, the team buys into really quickly. And you have to be intentional about the energy that you bring. And don't let your circumstances dictate your energy or your attitude. And you'll bring that great energy every day.
One of the things that I think what I want people to realize is that if you're not this is investment. Mm-hmm. You have to invest in operational leads. Yep. You got to invest in leadership. You have to invest in management. You have to invest in team. You have to invest in morale. You have to invest in your culture. You have to invest, and so by doing these investments, they say that a return on invested capital can take 12 to 24 months. The problem is people want immediate results, and sometimes it takes a little bit. But what ends up happening is you have this amazing culture that you're able to walk away, and so many people want to do that. So, listen to this podcast. I want everyone to hear this, that operations is about delivering. It's about case acceptance. It's about numbers. It's about culture. So you need to invest in your operations. No matter where you are, you'll hit an organizational ceiling, and if you get stuck there, you won't be able to move to the next level. So, Katina, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure.
I really
it's been great.
Enjoy this.
Yes,
this is awesome. So, thank you for the time. I really do appreciate it. Katina. So those of you listening know, there's nothing here prepared. There's no Katina. I didn't tell her what I was going to ask her or anything like that. I just started going off the cuff. That's one thing I love about this podcast is I don't really want ever to be scripted or this are the 10 questions. I did a podcast recently for somebody and they were like, can you send me your questions? And I was like, I don't have questions. I'm just going to talk, right? Because I think if you're a subject matter expert, it's just a conversation.
For sure.
And so I enjoy the openness conversation. And this is the reason I bring that up is to say, look, you have an expert in the field on this podcast telling you some of the things that are pointed out. And what I heard is some of this is, which is no matter how good your operation systems are and how much you're managing the process, you have to take care of team culture. You have to take care of leadership. You have to make sure your team feels,
Yes.
you have to know why.
Yes.
You have to make sure that we have that first floor energy. You can, all of a sudden, Katina's going to come out with a book. It's going to call it First Floor Energy.
First floor energy.
Something, right? You heard it here first, right? So look, I appreciate you being here. As always, look, send this to a friend. Send this podcast to a friend. Say, I'd love to discuss this. And what are you doing around this? And what can we be doing? Take this podcast and send it to your team. And say, I'd love for you to listen to this podcast and give me your thoughts on it. Let's discuss it at lunch. I'll do a kind of a lunch and learn. And I'll bring in lunch next week. Let's all talk about this concept and how we can grow. Maybe it's key team members, right? Maybe it's coming to Tower Leadership's leadership retreat. Whatever it is, you got to figure this out. But make sure you take a podcast like this and share it. Like it, please like it, guys. Our numbers keep going up and up and up. It's from people like you, so please like and share this. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to it, send it to a friend. We appreciate Katina being here. We appreciate you for listening and watching, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.